Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome in. It's it's another ITG special. JC Shurburtt here with you, along with Matt Anderson, the Late Night Gamecock. Wanted to do a big picture discussion on Gamecock football. The transfer portal is open. The Gamecocks have gotten some visitors lined up. We are through the coaching change, most likely. You never say never when NFL jobs open up, Matt, and things like that. But it looks like the staff solidified. The retention part of it, you still got a couple of more weeks, but looks like that's been a threshold that's been crossed. And all focus is now on 2026. Got a new plan on offense with Kendall Briles, coming off of a 4-8 season. And what we want to talk to you about, Matt and I have been kicking this idea around for a while, and we temporarily we're going to record it a couple weeks ago, but as you guys probably know, I've been a little busy and had some things come up, and then the last week of the year, Matt, it's like Christmas and my birthday and my
You can't do
anniversary.
anything.
And then my New
Holidays, all
Year's,
that.
dude. And
Yeah.
so it just kept popping up. Matt's got a little one at home, and we just finally found the time to do it. We have this one coming up, and then right now have a scheduled one of these, just a not live Zoom podcast kind of thing with Wild Bill Gunner. We're going to talk some Gamecock basketball and some stuff like that tomorrow. So we want to get some specials out before we restart. The Late Night Gamecock Show, Matt, has had a schedule change. Tomorrow
Yep.
night, 7 p.m. live on Chief Sports app, YouTube, Chief Sports South Carolina, and also on X. Now, some house cleaning for you guys out there. And we'll just go ahead and say it. I left thebigspur.com after 18 years. And so working on what's next on the website space, but everything here, podcasting wise, show wise, remains. There'll still be and there's some confusion about that there wouldn't be an ITG or I wouldn't be a part of it. That's not true. Our podcast version of that did upload to the 24/7 sports platform. So we're probably going to have a different Apple podcast and Google Play and Spotify channel for you guys to get the podcast version starting with this today. But just follow us on at Gamecock Show on X, or stay tuned to the YouTube channel and me personally on my X account, and we'll get you started there. Follow Matt, but Matt's coming back with Alex Jones. Alex still's with the Big Spur, but we're very website agnostic now,
Yeah.
and we always really have been. We've had people from other outlets on that are technically competitors with thebigspur.com, but that's going to continue. We'll have an SEC Sunday night. Boy, what a very interesting playoff weekend. My little theory, I tweeted about it a couple of times this weekend. Buys are not rewards right now with the 12 team. I think 12 sucks and they need to go to 16, frankly. But those teams that got buys were 1-7.
Oh, on
The other,
top of that, JC, the teams that played in in their conference championship were 1-9. The conference championship game is not a reward either anymore.
it's crazy, isn't it? Just where we've gone with this, except Indiana, and I think they're just the outlier of all outliers, and what a great football team they have. But SEC Sunday night, we'll definitely be talking about that. I can't. I'm sitting here thinking, goodness gracious, Indiana or Ole Miss? Am I doing that right? No, no. It'll be Ole Miss is Miami. So Ole
Yeah.
Miss, Miami, Indiana, or Oregon will play for the national title. I don't think it's probably been since Miami in '01 that any of those teams have won it. So wow.
I mean, dude, JC, I've been saying this on the late night show, and we've had Justin on. We've talked about some futures and stuff like that. Oregon, for sure, has been a team I've been on. Like, I just felt like once the lights came on and they had to go play, they would snap out of kind of like the funk they've been in, where they've just kind of coasted. And the same thing with Miami. I think the ACC just really is a letdown league. And during the regular season, when you're not really tested, then you have to turn it on. It's hard to turn it on, but I'm excited. I mean, I feel like the playoffs have been pretty decent, but I'm definitely going to check out the Sunday night guys tomorrow. That'll be a good show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now back to the Gamecocks. A big offseason. Obviously, you had a 4-8 record. It was a disaster of a season on offense. We all know that. You got my dog is upset about it every time I mention it. I'm sorry, Red just barked. But a big off season for Shane Beamer and the staff and the program in general. And I always talk about job, program, team. Job is if the job was open, can you win there? What resources are in place? All the big picture stuff we talk about. Team is the team just went 4-8. Program is kind of a microcosm of job. It's where the program is at during a particular tenure. What's the roster look like? What players are coming back? Who's coaching there? What's the immediate outlook for the program? And then your program gets better as you add things like facilities and NIL budget these days and new coaches and things like that. That all affects programs. It's three, to me, it's always been three distinct topics and buckets. So for the program, because if you think about it, if you have another 4-8 record next year, it's not going to be good. If you have a losing season next year, it's not going to be good. It's kind of a win now thing. But there's some hurdles they had to get across, and the first hurdle was, of course, replacing the coaches, getting a new plan on offense. We've talked about Kendall Browse incessantly. We know all that good stuff. But you've got a situation where that's going to be different. It's a different scheme. I think it's a welcome development, all that. But we've talked through that. The second part was uh, with the recruiting class from high school sort of sandwiched in there, and they held on to everybody and actually flipped a couple of guys, and flipped Walker and then held on to Landon Duckworth,
Yeah.
which was big. But it was retaining the players that you have to retain. And Matt, you kind of laid it out here in these show notes that we have that the top three obviously were the guys you didn't want to, the potential stars. And it starts, in my opinion, with the two stars that we've seen around here, then plus Nick Harbor, who really got better again this past year and who I think could have a breakout season. But Gamecocks were pretty good at retaining. And they got these guys back.
Well, it's one thing that has stuck with me that was said. One thing that stood out to me during the regular season was Lane Kiffin during his halftime interview or mid third quarter interview. I can't remember what it was. It was during the game and it was with the sideline reporter. And he just said, "Look, we got a triple team Lenore Sellers, put spies on him, make sure that he can't break us because he is a game breaker." And the same thing with Dylan Stewart. And unfortunately for the Gamecocks last year, due to scheme, due to a number of different things, injuries, a lot of teams were able to scheme something up against those two guys. But let's not mistake anything, JC. Sellers and Stewart are two of probably the top 20 returning players in the country next year. Dylan Stewart, most definitely. I know the Lenore Sellers has some haters out there, but from a tape standpoint of what quarterbacks have done over the last 2 years, I think Lenore Sellers was the biggest piece of the puzzle. I think that while you never want to lose a Dylan Stewart, if you did and you kept Lenore Sellers and you kept Nick Harbor, you can at least see the makings of a transformation on offense, which is what they're going to have to do. And then JC with the other ones, the guys we highlighted, Jacobs was a last minute type of addition to the portal right before it opened on New Year's Day. I thought he was pretty good. I thought he could do some good things in Kendall Brow's scheme. But then you have that big recruiting class from just a year ago, JC, the best wide receiver haul in Gamecock history. And I don't think any of those guys have transferred out to my knowledge. You don't have Murph, obviously, Sellers. Oh, okay, you do have Brian Rowe. Brian Rowe's the only guy, but if you told me that the Gamecocks were going to keep 5 of those 6 going into 2026 football season, I'd say wow, because that's unheard of in college football nowadays when you have a big class like that. But they're probably going to keep 5, 6 of those guys. Don't say, don't put it in pen yet. But then the DBs, Vicari Swain and Judge Collier, holding on to those guys. JC, that was huge. You can see the makings of why the portal is going to be so important because you kept the key cogs. I mean, the Matt Fullers of the world. You're probably going to have to bring in 2 running backs, and we'll get to all of that. But now you really can't just fill in gaps, and the offensive line might be a good spot to talk about that, JC, because there's been 6 or 7 guys that have gone to the portal. I think that John Whittle did a great job laying that out there a couple weeks ago, and I think it kind of became like a groundswell, like just start over, start fresh. And JC, you've said it, I've said it. There was nobody on that offensive line where, especially the upperclassmen, that you were like, keep no matter what, throw extra money at. And so far, the Gamecock coaching staff hasn't, and they're going to have to reload in the portal.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a bad thing. And look, Beamer kind of laid it out in his press conference that those are talented guys. You know, Trevon Ball, Tree Babalade, they're capable. We've seen them do it. It's woefully inconsistent. Tree broke me with his performance this year because I've always liked him. I always thought, well, he should be playing, and he did, and he started, and I thought he played pretty doggone well at times. And then against Ole Miss, you mentioned that game. That guy had the worst. I mean, it was just shockingly bad, and he never played again. But what I was told, and this was by a pretty good source, that the guys they liked and they wanted to build around. Now, Boaz Stanley got in the portal, and that was surprising a little bit because my what I was told was Boaz Stanley, Nolan Hay are going to stick, but they're probably going to be backups, right?
Yeah.
So maybe. I mean, I know Boaz just did not have a very good year mentally, and the center position was a mess. I mean, You have 8 false starts as a center. John Strickland, I've mentioned this. He says that he played center at Carolina for 4 years. He had one of them, and it was like it totally embarrassing to him. And he had kept in it. He was. It was just a bad thing because it's so rare. You have 8 of them. It just never stopped. It never got a little better, than never stopped. And that kind of stuff is just. It's annoying at times, but when you're sitting there 2nd and 3, and then that happens, and it's 2nd and 8, that changes your dynamic, changes your play calling, all that good stuff. But what I was told was the guys that they like on the offensive line, they like to build around, and all these guys are still here. Were Darius Gray, Demola Ajadehoun, I think that's how you say that. I think I finally figured out how to say his name.
I'm not even attempting.
I've called him the kid from Georgia Tech for years, for a couple of years now. Josiah Thompson, Shed Surratt, who had a good freshman year, and then they're like Zion Giles, who they'll bring along, but they are going to need portal help, especially you want to carry 17 in that room. I don't know how they're going to get there. But Marquis Anderson is one that's back. Nolan
Blake
Hayes
Franks.
has not left. Blake Franks. So you do have some numbers.
And Brubaker's still around too, right?
Ryan Brubaker is still around. Actually, made it all the way back and played against Coastal. So he got some PT, and we didn't. Beamer was talking about he didn't expect that. So you got around a core of 10. I think if they can get 5 in, that would be good. You already have DJ Chester, who they recruited out of high school. He's from, I believe, McDonough, Georgia originally. He was at LSU and played as a true freshman. He's an interior guy. And then a young man whose name escapes me from Iowa State is visiting this coming week or next weekend, the 6th and 7th, or whenever the 6th and 7th is. The 3rd today, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's during the week.
JC, I want to check you real quick. You said they already have. You're saying for a visit lined up with the LSU kid, correct?
That's what it said. The report from Matt Zennett said he will visit South Carolina.
Yeah.
So, but he was Gamecocks went pretty hard after him out of high school, and looked like they may get him. Then LSU got him, so that was just kind of one of those things. So, oh yeah, I don't have access to the Big Spur anymore. So the list of confirmed transfer visitors I can't get to. I gotta rejoin, but maybe you can get that list. Hale's got it on the Big Spur. We can go through it. But
Yeah, we'll give Hale a quick shout out. I love
yeah,
Hale.
yeah, because
Um,
I went on a little mini vacay the last couple of days for New Year's, and I'm like just kind of hitting this going. But yeah, I think that, and you mentioned wide receiver. You know, funny thing, a lot of people I think speculated Mazeo Bennett would get in the portal, and he hasn't to this point. He's doing some NIL commercials though, so I don't know. Maybe maybe he sticks. I'm sure he would like to have had a better second year, but he's still around. I do think this year, because of the numbers, they're gonna go target 1 or 2 portal receivers, especially now with Andrevius Jacobs getting in the portal. And I thought Jacobs had a lot of value. I do. Is he replaceable? Yes, but he's got a lot of value. But you're looking at a room now, Matt, with Donovan Murph back, Jaden Sellers back. So that's the
I mean, I think that the wide
those guys
receiver room is
produced. Yeah,
fine. I mean, especially when you just talked about Mazeo Bennett, JC. You know, with Mazeo specifically, we've seen him against Alabama 2 years ago. He's a talented player, kind of got caught up in the numbers. And I'm just gonna say that this is a blank slate for everybody that's coming back. The offense was so discombobulated for so long last year. I mean, I've said this on one of the shows, JC, but Dylan Stewart literally could not practice in scrimmage because he was terrorizing the offense so badly. So it was almost like the wool was kind of put over a lot of people's faces because you thought the offense was hitting some kind of stride in the preseason. It clearly wasn't. It never did. And so how that affected all the players, I don't know. But I can say that we've seen Mazeo flash. Getting him back is big. I mean, JC, I know you're high on Jordan Gidron. He's a kid who people forget that he reclassified, came up a year, and he was a top 100 kid, maybe even a top 80 kid. How high was he, JC? Top 50? And
yeah.
I
He was
think
up
all
there.
these kids should do that. I think if you were a top 100 wide receiver, DB, running back, quarterback, pick your nuance of skill position where you don't have to get bigger, stronger necessarily right away. I would do that because Jordan Gidron is going to get massive amounts of just growth from last year to this year instead of sitting a year in high school and just dominating.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you got the grades to do it, and your family is okay with you missing prom and all that. Jordan was exceptionally early because not only Matt did he graduate early, he enrolled in the spring of last year,
Yeah.
and his body, when you looked at him coming in, he's a little skinny, and then you saw some workout pictures right before the season started. And you're like, my goodness, this guy's been looking really good, but he's a bigger, faster guy.
He's a track guy
Yeah,
too.
a lot of upside for Jordan Gidron. And then Sequel Patterson's coming in with this class. Same situation as Jordan. Although I don't know if Sequel's one of the 11 that's coming in. I think he is, but
Yeah, I don't believe he is. I don't think he graduated early.
that's right. Okay, so, but anyway, the visitors coming in, and we talked about wide receiver. I think they're gonna be fine there. I mean, a guy like Lex Cyrus, who's got speed. I think he's got a good future here as a slot guy and a return guy. Jaden Sellers, once he entered the lineup, Matt, you know him from South Florence. He is just a baller in high school and a gamer. Donovan Murph did some good things, and then Nick Sequel, Mazio, and then you got a guy who's a familiar name coming in for a visit that was a player during recruiting that from Orlando. His name's Jaden Gibson. Carolina, I think I lost him to Oklahoma. Eventually, looked like Carolina was going to get him for a while. Things haven't panned out for him. He's been hurt, but he's a bigger 6'4" guy. Outside guy. They don't have a lot of those outside type guys. I do think
Mhm.
Gidron can be that. I think Harbor obviously is. He's coming from Oklahoma in for a visit, and that visit, according to what you sent, starts today.
Yeah, and especially with
Along
these
with
wide receivers, like you mentioned, JC, I can see them taking maybe two, definitely one. And I do think that guy will be a bigger receiver in the 6'2" plus size range, just to give some coverage there. But tight ends are going to be important in this class too, from a portal standpoint, because Kendall Briles, if he can find that tight end he likes, it can really make the offense go and give some more dynamic aspects to it. And maybe the Gamecocks have it. Maybe there's a guy on the roster already. There, I mean, there's a handful we like. Brady Hunt's a guy that's been there for a long time now and just seems to fall forward each time. So we like him. And the tight ends will be interesting. Defensive tackle is going to be interesting. We talked about offensive line. I mean, defensive tackle. JC, I think that right now, and tell me if you agree with this, like where the portal is going to benefit South Carolina is, I think South Carolina's top 22, right? Outside of offensive line right now, the top 22 is pretty solid. Now, you might have some holes, but that's what Steve Spurrier lived on, his top 22 staying healthy and being really good. Now, with the portal, I think you're going to have an opportunity. That's where you just go fill in the gaps and you bring competition. And Brandon Cisse, I mean, JC in the preseason, we were talking about him as a jack of all trades, maybe a starter, maybe a not starter. And he ended up being, potentially a first round draft pick, probably definitely a second round draft pick. So you can go find those guys in the portal just to fill in a gap. And if you had a Brandon Cisse come in from the portal this year at safety, I'm just using his type of impact or defensive tackle, that's going to be huge because Clayton White is already really good at what he does, and we all like Clayton White. I think most people have come around to him if they were still on the fence after seeing this year, and the defense pretty much playing perfect outside of 3 drives, maybe a game that just broke the back. But defensive tackle is going to be huge, and then JC at offensive line. I really think that what John Strickland talks about so much is being a cohesive unit. It doesn't have to be one guy that's purely dominant. Sure, you want 5 dominant guys, but getting on the same page and just getting bodies and getting people in. You can get by with 15, you can get by with 17. And heck, I'm going to get just slaughtered for this comment. I texted Alex the other day. I said, hot take. I don't think Boaz Stanley would have been terrible next year at South Carolina just because. I mean, and Alex, to his credit, he can't get over the 8 false starts
I can't
at
either.
center, which I understand. But maybe there was just, the yips. Maybe it was feel so much pressure on myself, and the offensive line kind of sucks. They're trying to do too much, think too much. But hopefully Clem will get them in a spot where they're more cohesive, and the sum of the parts is greater, or the whole is greater than the sum, or individual, however you want to say that statement.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. They got a running back on campus today, Nate Palmer from TCU. This is kind of the type of back I felt like a younger guy, red-shirted his first year, was kind of the third team guy at TCU this year. Obviously, Kendall Browse would know a lot about him and what he's all about and his upside. And then I mentioned Jaden Gibson on campus. They will have a kicker coming in. I love this name, Upton Belafont from Texas Tech. And then we mentioned the offensive line. Here we go. There's 4 of them. Brendan Black from Iowa State is the kid. Brendan Black is his name. Um, really good player. Iowa State, what they do is develop guys, right? And so
Yeah.
you really kind of like you really like him. I think to a certain extent, and then and then it's to be determined on these other guys. DJ Chester from LSU, Seth Smith, an intriguing player, tackle 6'6", 285 from Northern Arizona, from Chandler, Arizona originally. That's in Phoenix. Austin Kawecki. Uh-oh. A wiki. I
I'm gonna
like
let you do that
guys.
one.
I like guys with
Kawaki.
those last names.
Kawasi.
Kawecki.
Yeah.
Kawecki.
If you have an
Um,
I on the end of your last name as an offensive lineman, let's just go
yep.
all in.
And he's a guy from Frisco, Texas. So again, Bryles and Clements are probably familiar with him. Darren Usher, too. I want to give a shout out to him. He's done a great job preparing for the portal. And then a tight end named Jacob Harris from Bowling Green is a to be determined as well when it comes to the offensive line. He's from Westerville, Ohio, originally 6'4", 255. Played at Bowling Green last year. So we will see kind of how that goes, but there'll be more names to it. I don't want anybody to freak out because there's not an edge or a D tackle because there was a D tackle that Matt Zenitz reported this morning. I think would commit or would I'm sorry visit that's 6'6", 355. So our boy Kreger, who's in the chat box and who is loves size. Craig's all about size. If you're a big player, Craig's gonna be excited about you, dude. I love that about Craig.
Yeah, and
Um,
and
he
just remember that there are so many players out there that, and the 16th is just what that you don't have to decide by the 16th. You just have to have
no,
your name in the portal by the 16th as
yes,
well. So remember that there is still negotiations going on inside the programs these kids are currently at. There's negotiations going on in South Carolina, and there's also agents that are saying, "My guy's not in the portal yet. You better save your money because he's coming." And so there are some things like that Gamecock fans need to be paying attention to because everybody's not in, and it's already a record number of players. And you know, I saw some stuff online where Gamecocks aren't getting the big names in. Other teams are getting the big names in. Well, just hold your horses there because some of the big names are still playing in the Final Four of the college football playoffs
yeah,
too.
and there's not a. I mean, there really aren't a ton of like big names, right, in the transfer portal. So we'll see. The defensive tackle is Horace Lockett, originally from Atlanta. Area originally 6'6", 355 was at UCF last year. Big old dude. Had 13
That's a heck of a
tackles.
name.
Horace Lockett is an amazing name for a D tackle, but competition for him. Notre Dame. Notre Dame got gutted on the D line, so they're going to have to get guys. Ohio State, oh, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Nebraska. So 13 tackles, 3 for loss in 4 games this year before season-ending injury shut him down. But
A heck of a stat line.
yeah, that's productive for the time that they've got. So we'll see sort of what happens. But yeah, I always say don't worry about names, worry about if you can play football or not. But I think that the portal is going to be very interesting. But that's kind of the latest on the portal and the guys coming in that will be important. So switching topics here, it's and on the notes you mentioned they need someone who can get the short yardage and money down and distance, goal line, whatever. Is that the question I have? Is that guy really Matt Fuller? And we just didn't see it because there was no blocking. And then I remember the Ole Miss game when they went for it and they'd run that play where he goes in motion. It's like a jet sweep, but to a running back,
Yeah.
and he got 5 yards. It was a challenging 5 yards. And they ran him to the outside. And then they tried that again on the 4th and 1. It was nobody liked the play call at all. I think including Beamer, but it was he got stuffed, right? I don't think Matt is a hit the edge guy. I think he's a lot like Mario Anderson in the sense that if he has a hole, he can explode through it. Mario had during his 1 year at South Carolina had a 75-yard touchdown run against Tennessee, kind of like Matt did at LSU.
Well,
But
JC, why do
I
running
think he
backs go
needs a
east
pull.
west?
Yeah,
Why answer this question for me? Why do running backs go east west? They're trying to create something that's not
create
there.
something. Yeah,
So, and Matt Fuller did that a number of times in short yardage situations. And it's not that he can't read the hole. Maybe the hole is not there. And he's like, crap, it's 4th and 1. I can either plow into the back of my offensive linemen who are already 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or I can try and do something to get this yard. I think that we don't know yet on Matt Fuller. I think that he can be that guy. He's built like that guy, and maybe the scheme gets simplified. I mean, there's going to be a heck of a lot of RPO too that tricks the defense, so maybe you don't have to go east and west as often. Maybe it's just you let the defense decide where you go, and that's where I think Matt Fuller can be beneficial. But then Jerron Howell as well. I mean, you have those two guys, and let's not forget August Dave, who's coming back. I mean, he was a highlight during the fall practice and fall scrimmages, and I think it was really smart to be able to redshirt him when the season kind of went down the toilet. What's the point, you know? But Rasul Faison was never that guy, and Rasul Faison, to his credit, he made some things happen that shouldn't have happened. You go back to that Virginia Tech game, even go back to the Clemson game a couple times, but you're going to get 2 more guys in there, and you got to hope the guys you have can be that money down guy, because that's the thing the Gamecocks are missing, JC. That's what the offense was missing. That running back who could go for 3 at 3rd and 4, and you could keep the entire playbook open and bringing that RPO back into it, I think can help in those situations. But that's what they have with Rocket Sanders. That's what they have with Mike Davis, both of them. It's what they have with Corey Boyd. It's what they have with Marcus Lattimore. It's what they had with the kid that played for the Patriots, Kevin. With Kevin, I mean
Kevin Harris. Yeah,
yeah, Kevin Harris. I mean that's so important for any offense, and you can't just be gadgety and spin move and Xbox juke cuts. Like those don't work in the SEC
Mm-mm.
very often.
I think too, Matt. The tempo and the scheme will help. You mentioned RPOs. I'm sure everybody watched Indiana decimate Alabama. Most of Indiana's offense is RPO, and they run it flawlessly. Uh, and you look, they didn't flinch. I mean, they just line up and gash them. And I think that's why it's important for Lenore Sellers to really get that down and make the right reads. I
Yeah.
don't think to this point he's mastered that because I don't think it was a huge part of what they're asking him to do with either Dowell Loggins or Mike Shula. Well, TCU's 80% RPO
Yeah, when
last
it's
year with Kendall
10%
Briles.
RPO, it's going to be
Yeah,
hard to execute in the game because you're not
it's,
repping it. But,
it's a
JC,
rhythm
the
thing.
other
It's like the
thing,
option. It's like running the option.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then the other thing you're talking about with tempo and RPO, they kind of go hand in hand. But tempo, those money down and distance situations, if the defense can't sub, now they're tired. Maybe that makes those money down situations a little bit easier.
Fatigue makes a coward of us all, Will Muschamp. I find myself quoting him a lot. But
He's at
yeah,
Texas
and,
now.
and and the principles of this offense, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy for him. Principles of this offense, man, it is going to be a lot different. And you mentioned earlier Sellers and the keys and stuff like that, with spying him or whatever. It is a whole lot easier to spy and to lock in being a spy if you're a defensive player when you've got all the time in the world to dissect and look and get a sense of what to anticipate. All the reason teams want run tempo to success with success is that the defense doesn't have time to lock in and and diagnose. The linebackers, literally South Carolina last year, with spying him, they're like, okay, just the more time you give them, the more you substitute, then they can substitute, the less effective it is having a quarterback like Sellers who can create and make things difficult on you.
So we can talk up tempo, we can talk RPO, we can talk whatever we want from a schematic standpoint. And we can talk about the portal, JC, and the guys they have to go get, or the positions of need, or the retention. But this upcoming season is going to be a failure if they cannot get down Kendall Briles' offense in spring practice. I mean, they got to have this done. I mean, they're implementing different shells, they're doing all these kinds of things when the players get back to campus. But Lenore Sellers needs to be spending every available hour that is allowed by the NCAA with Kendall Briles, with Clem to understand this offense because it has to be running on all cylinders. Yeah, you get the two kind of cupcake games to start the season, which I think is a good thing for South Carolina, which they haven't had in a very long time. But this thing has to be seamless because you talk about Indiana. Why is Indiana so successful? They run this offense perfectly. There's very few gaffes, there's very few issues with it. It's unpredictable to an extent. So that's what the Gamecocks are going to have to do. And if they can, JC, just imagine how happy Gamecock fans will be seeing. They haven't seen an offense since what? Golly, JC, like a real offense since Spurrier in 2012, 2013. It's been
Yeah.
over a decade.
18 was actually a daggum good offense and it sounds weird to say because they got shut out in the bowl. But that was more that Virginia had the ball for 43 minutes in the game
Yeah.
than anything. But 18's offense, I think, was probably the best one, just statistically too, if you look at the numbers and stuff. But you're right. And you mentioned Indiana. That team's all about. Now look, Indiana's more talented than they were last year. They have ball players. I mean, I don't want to. Last year, I was not a fan of their talent. I saw them against Notre Dame and was like, these guys, they don't even have that many good. But they upgraded at quarterback. They upgraded the skill positions. They've probably evaluated better than anybody in the country. And they
25th rated portal class
yeah
last year.
they
It
got
wasn't, they
yeah
brought in studs.
it was crazy, but they got dudes, and then their schemes are so good. Their defensive schemes the same way. It's people have talked about it. Like man, I think Ohio State mentioned it after they lost in the Big Ten championship game to them. The scheme just puts us in a blender, and it does. But Browse runs, and Browse is different than Shanahan from Indiana. That's not a go 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 type of thing. It's more of a pick your poison. I mean, I saw a game one time this year where Maryland, Indiana had it like first and goal at the 9, which South Carolina had, it seemed like led the country in first and goal from the freaking 9 all year.
Yeah.
The 9, great. Super. But
It's like flipping over double eights in blackjack.
yeah, man. But first and goal from the 9 and the Maryland's entire defense just went one way. and there was a hole big enough to drive the truck through. The offensive lineman didn't even have to block anybody. And Mendoza's sitting there at about the 3 yard line, patting him on the back because the hole was that wide open. That's the RPO game, and that can and Browse does a lot of that. Just does it really fast, and you start thinking about, wow, Lenora Sellers, and if you can get the line going, and then the other thing they do is they'll Browse will chunk it deep on you in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And there's a lot of bubble screens too, but there's a lot of times where just like go. And you mentioned Sellers putting in the work, and I agree completely with you there. The good news on that is, as far as quarterbacking is concerned, right? This is not going to be as complex as what either Shula or Loggins had him do. It's going to really be better for the receivers as far as route running and stuff, and for the quarterbacks as far as learning goes.
Well,
Now,
it's a lot of one side of the field reads.
yeah, plenty of that. You see that
Yeah.
with Tennessee, 1, 2 reads and go. And the tempo is what makes it go. And so, I've always kind of been under the impression with Lenore Sellers, I called it midseason, the operational, when he is aligned with the operational tempo of the football game, that's when he's at its best. And what I mean by that, you look at the Clemson game 2 years ago, which was his famous game, running the ball at least. And even against Missouri in the passing game in 2024, he was in sync and in rhythm, right? And so when he would make those plays and escape, he was his internal clock was sped up. But you may say, well, JC, the defenses are trying to speed up the quarterback. Yeah, they're trying to heat him up and speed him up if he's not going fast, but it can also work both ways where he's aligned with that. And so I think he plays better in those situations. But you're right. I just, with the amount of the little bit of RPOs they have tried to run or option plays, I can't sit here and tell you that through 2 years that Lenore Sellers has mastered that. But my theory on it is a theory. Some could be wrong. Who knows? But is that it's because of everything else he was trying to worry about doing. When you have to go up to the line, read the defense, change the protection, and there's a lot of that, dude. And then make 3 reads and then go. And you're trying to think about, well, I got to stay in the pocket till the last minute. And then you can't see the guys downfield because, it's just relax and go play, I think is kind of the theme of this offense. But you're
And
absolutely right.
JC,
It's
there will
probably
be
the key
a
to the season, the whole season on offense is going to be getting
yeah.
getting this part down.
Well, it's also to your point. I mean, there are a lot of people like PFF will grade stuff. I mean, then there's a poster that's prominent on message boards that'll do his grades on offensive line and say the offensive line was great. You can do your individual assignment great, but if somebody else has a breakdown, if someone else gets rated a 21 out of 100 on that passing block grade, then it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. And that's when Lenore Sellers doesn't have time to go through 3 reads, stay in the pocket, do all those things. And that's what they need to improve on. And yeah, it starts with the offensive line, JC, but you can mask a bad offensive line. That's been done at South Carolina before. They have masked not great offensive line. Steve Spurrier did it. He had some guys on the offensive line, but he didn't have studs that all got drafted, all went to the NFL. But creativity masks a lot of that. And there's been almost zero creativity for the past, I don't know, JC. I mean, I don't think Dowell was especially creative, just point blank. Mike Shula definitely wasn't. Furry had some fun moments, but the creativity is and just the mastering of a concept, right? Kendall Browse has been a college offensive coordinator his entire career, essentially, from wide receiver coach to offensive coordinator, all these stops. He's been so successful. So trust what he's telling you to do and go do it. And then you have a guy that's calling the offense that he practically designed with his dad, or watched his dad,
Uh,
probably with like magic marker on the wall. Like, just here's what we're gonna do. Like Coach Klein and the Water Boy, he fakes to the left. No, he fakes the fake. I mean, it's all those things that are just nuanced to him, and it's got to be imprinted on his offense. Because I'm not worried about the defense. I'm really not worried about the defense, and they're going to get a guy to be opposite Dylan Stewart. And when you have a Dylan Stewart, you don't have to go get. Look, everybody wants Chaz Coleman. I get that. The entire country wants Chaz Coleman. You don't have to get a Chaz Coleman. I mean, you've had multiple guys have 8+ sacks across Dylan Stewart over 2 years. Like, the sacks will still be there. The defense is still going to generate pressure. And I think Dylan Stewart's going to have his best year if he can get back to 100% healthy too. And by God, if they don't call holds this year, JC, Dylan Stewart might just take a ref's head off.
I know, man. People talk about him being frustrated, and I think a lot of times in this era, we interpret that as he's probably gone. The only thing that may have given him a second thought was that Sterling Lucas left and they were tight, but they replaced him with a guy like Dion Barnes,
Yeah,
who
when you got Abdul Carter getting drafted number 2 overall, I think I'll stick with that guy.
this guy's been coaching for what, 6 years, three as a GA. I covered him as a recruit. He was a
Yeah.
great dude to deal with as a recruit. Um, and 11 guys are in the NFL that he's coached in one way or another. Yeah, I think that was a slam dunk replacement. And hats off to Clayton White for building the relationship with him previously, and for Shane Beamer to get it done. And Stan Drayton, I know, gave put in a good word because they were on the same staff, and I think it'll be good. I do think as far as the end opposite Dylan goes, I don't necessarily know because Chaz Coleman, when you just look at his stats, they weren't. I think he's just a potential guy. Got in there and did some good things as a freshman. He'll be even better next year. But I do believe that you got to go find your Kyle Kennard, and it's nothing against Brian Thomas Jr. this past year, but I think that finding a dude, whether and hey, it could be Jalen Brown when he gets back healthy. I don't know that Anthony Addison and Quay Dodd next year will be ready to go take that spot, but I think they're both promising. And then I think Desmond Umazulu, I mean, maybe he has the big senior year, maybe he doesn't. But there's no like locks in my mind for it. I think we kind of knew Thomas Jr. was going to be the starter once Brown went down. But I look at it's important to have a guy that can rush the passer. And I think when you're opposite Dylan Stewart and they're all worried about him, that happens. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. was all SEC with 6 sacks this year, and you can bet your sweet bahunkus that had a lot to do with teams worried about Dylan. But then when you kind of look at what they were missing, Kyle was great at setting the edge against the run. Think about in 2024 how many times Alabama. I remember the Alabama game. They tried to run this jet sweep, and he just obliterated it, blew it
Yeah.
completely up. And I think they need that kind of guy. Teams were able to run to the outside on South Carolina a little bit more. And there were some ugly games where they gave up too many rushing yards, obviously, Missouri. And thank God they're not on the schedule next
Well,
year.
the defensive end that Clemson got last year in the portal,
Will Height, yeah.
yeah, Will Height. I mean, that's a guy who was, top 100 transfer portal guy, but he wasn't a 5-star. He wasn't, number 1 guy. Go get a guy like that. I mean, seriously. The good thing is the message is strong. And look, one of the things that I think Shane Beamer spent too much time doing in his first couple years at South Carolina was trying to make NFL players and get NFL players to be successful in the NFL. Well, like my wife always says, steal like an artist. If there's an artist that does something good, do that. Well, guess what? You went and got Deion Barnes, to JC's point, who, hey, he's got 11 guys in the league. Trust this guy. You don't necessarily have to do it each and every offseason. But look, you're going to have something positive on that front when Dylan Stewart goes pro. He's going to be a first rounder. You're going to have that to sell on the recruiting trail. But it's all about this year right now, JC. And, to your point of those defensive linemen, that's a big priority for me. I mean, it's going to be good to have Travian back, but they're going to have to mold some guys and figure out what they're good at, what they're not good at, and make this scheme because Clayton White can be a bit exotic. He's
Mhm.
not just a straight 4-3, right? That's not what Clayton White's going to do. So they'll do all the things that Kendall Briles does on offense. You got to adapt to what you have, and they'll do it again. And hopefully they get some more bodies. Shane Beamer was very adamant. Defensive tackle, offensive line, defensive tackle. I mean, it's one of the funniest quotes I think I've ever heard because he just laid it all out there. And it's so true. So some bodies of defensive tackle are the big thing though. Like it doesn't have to be, to your point, JC, this guy who's going to get 16 sacks or anything like that. But you have to have big body. You have to make the defense do what the defense wants to do. And a lot of times that's just occupying the offensive line and putting pressure on the quarterback. The secondary and the linebackers can take care of the rest.
I am right there with you, man. Yeah, Horace Lockett would be one of those big body D tackles, and that they're going after. I haven't heard there have been a lot of names that have come up at DT, but The scary thing about that is what I heard about Notre Dame over the weekend and the fact that they are going to be very aggressive. And we know Notre Dame's got resources and it's Notre Dame and all that. And I kind of anticipate Carolina going after similar type guys. But hey, you're going to have to beat the big boys in recruiting no matter what you're doing. They do have Noah Clark and Aiden Harris coming in. Aiden Harris physically, I think, could end up being a guy in the rotation early. And with Noah, it just depends on how quickly he gets adapted. He's a freak athlete, don't get me wrong.
He's a big
Uh,
boy too that
yeah,
has some baby fat, man. Once he loses that baby fat, he can. I'm not saying Javon Kinlaw, but he's that big type of athlete,
yeah,
jumbo guy who can.
gigantic. Just a like he comes at you and you're like, it's like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Yeah, I love that. I love those guys. I love D tackle is probably my favorite position. But you do have two guys that I think will start or that will at least be penciled in as starters in the spring, and Gabe Brownlow Dindy and Troy Pikes coming back. Troy Pikes
He flashed.
really flashed at the end of last year. Remember, he was a late portal get. They beat Ohio State and Georgia on him. Just kind of, I mean, when you had Goodwine and Barrett playing as well as they did individually, and I got to give a shout out to those two guys. They played their butts off this year. And there were games where they took the Alabama game. Those two were they couldn't block them. Bama could not block those guys, and they just played about as well as they could. Yes, they missed TJ. Everybody would miss TJ Sanders, and yes, Tonka Hemingway and Boogie, and they did miss those guys, but it wasn't a situation where I thought the defensive tackles were this big liability.
Not at
Line,
all, and I was worried about it.
and linebacker, Murphy's back. Murphy did not get off to the best start, but I thought toward the end he started playing ball and looks like the guy that people thought he could be.
He did that at
Fred,
Florida State too. Started slow and then came on like a madman. So
yeah,
it's all about getting him ready game one.
Fred, yeah, and he had some injuries again at Florida State that kind of sidetracked him, but in Alabama he was just kind of behind others that were obviously really good. But Fred Johnson has to be more consistent. I'm the president of the Fred Johnson Hype Club, right? And after the first game, I was all proud of myself. I was like, "Yeah, there's a win for old JC." I don't know, and there's just it's with him, it's consistency, and I don't think he played bad. I don't.
I think it's just reps. He just needs more reps.
Yeah, and then Justin Okoronkwo, who let's just say there are a lot of other schools interested in his services, and the Gamecocks managed to keep him. I think the sky's the limit for the German assassin, the Red Baron, so
Yeah.
to speak. So I can say, I still want him to just yell stuff out in German. And what a good kid and good person. Justin's really smart and coming over here from a different country. I mean, he's one that needs more reps too, and it just has to grow and develop. He's a little raw, but you could just see the raw ability. I mean, he was a lacrosse and soccer player. He's got great feet. So I'm excited about the linebackers yet again this offseason. I don't think that they had a bunch of guys they signed in the 2025 class. I don't see them going on a portal linebacker unless one's just too good not to
Yeah.
take. Kind of like Brandon Cisse last year. They were set at defensive back numbers wise, but he was like too good not to take. So
Well,
we'll
don't
see.
forget Anthony Addison. I heard just rave reviews about Anthony Addison last year in the preseason
Yeah.
at linebacker. I mean, I don't think they have to
But
take anybody at linebacker.
he's an outside linebacker though, so they call
Yeah.
him a linebacker. But he plays with his hand down. But in 3-man packages, he could be. Yeah, Hale McGranahan loves Anthony Addison, and he's qualified because he saw him play about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm looking forward to watching him in year two. He got on the field some as a true freshman, but Donovan Darden's a guy they need to continue to bring along. Josh Smith
That dude
from
looks like
Dutch
a million
Ford.
bucks, by the way.
Yeah,
I stood next to that kid.
yeah.
He looks the part. He's the get off the bus kind of guy.
AJ Holloway is a promising linebacker from Buford. They did lose Austin to the portal. And then they got two more coming in, and Keenan Britt and Andrew Harris. So they're pretty good. Yeah, and remember, they only play two at a time. So
I
that's
like that Andrew Harris kid a lot too.
He's big and physical. I think low end, he's Brad Johnson-ish. High
Yeah.
end, maybe a little bit better. Um, Heck, I know Pup Howard's in the portal again, and Pup Howard was obviously rated pretty high as a recruit, but he can be Pup Howard pretty easily, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Then the secondary, JC. I mean, we talked about the DBs. I think those are probably penciled in with Collier and Swain. I think those can be dynamic DBs. But then safety is where it gets interesting. I know you've talked about it a good bit. Can it be Jazavion Currents? Can it be a Kendall Daniels? Can it be one of these long rangy guys, the Chris Hatfield, who's been around the program for a year? Another guy Hale McGranahan loves, by the way. Um, I think that's where they got to target in the portal. They got to get some guys in there. I mean, they just picked up two 2027 DB commits in the past week as
Yeah,
well. I think the portal, they're going to have to get some guys in the secondary. But at the same time, Jaleel Solomon, when he came out of high school, they thought he was going to be a three and done. I mean, they believed that. He's probably still has untapped potential because there's just been so many good players in the secondary for the Gamecocks over the past couple of years. It's kind of like the Alabama JC comparisons that you bring up, where a kid might just been behind somebody for a little bit.
yeah. You probably with Solomon specifically, you probably worry a little bit about him being behind Miles Norwood, who did not have a good year. Um, and look, in fairness to Miles Norwood, I have not watched like the all 22 to see the plays where he did have good coverage. We
Yeah,
just saw the plays where he got beat a lot, and so you kind of think that. I'll never forget in 2010, there were a lot of Gamecock fans that were beating up on Stephon Gilmore, because the Gamecocks would bust in the secondary, and you see Stephon chasing after a guy. Come to find out, a really, really, really good source told me that wasn't on Stephon at all. It was the safety that busted, and he was just trying to go make a place. But it looked, real time. You get that impression. I'll never forget SEC championship game. Carolina's getting their butt beat. Somebody's behind me. He's like, "That Gilmore, my God, blah blah blah." Well, he's the best player in pro football for a year. I mean, he's pretty
I had
good.
people that said he used to be a quarterback after what he did
Yeah,
against
dude.
Clemson.
It's like, yeah, no, dude, he was pretty good. But I think that what I would be excited about, like super excited. And I don't know, Peyton Williams is back and he's going to have to, somebody's got to beat him out, you
He's the
know?
whipping boy right now, JC.
I know. And look, they were going to miss Nick Emanware either way. So, I mean, to me, Matt, it's more that Nick Emanware was just gone and those guys were not Nick Emanware, right? And so and look, I don't know that anybody can. I mean, look what Nick's doing in the NFL. I mean, that guy, he was such a what they call an eraser, because the safety position. It's called a safety because what that means is they're back there for safety purposes. In other
Yeah.
words, if everything else goes down, it's up to them to stop it because otherwise, that's kind of your last line of defense. And Nick was so good not only against the run, but his pass coverage got so much better the last year. So a knack for the ball, just a special player, South
When
Carolina
you run a
kid.
4.3 and you're 6'4" and
Yeah.
your lats are the size of my head. I
Yes,
mean,
dude. He's a freak player. But what would excite me a little bit, and it's not because they're both 6'4", 6'3" and a half, and built similarly to Nick's, because they're good ball players and guys that played high school quarterback and safety is Kendall Daniels Jr. and Jazavian Currents. I'm not ruling out Currents being in the starting lineup next year at safety. Now they may play him at corner. I don't know. Sometimes Torian Gray has different ideas about where guys play. But I do think that when you look at the secondary recruiting like that would be to me great, and that's not. But hey, look, I hope Peyton Williams gets a whole lot better and becomes an All American next season. Like has a great last year. DBs here do that.
yeah,
Like O'Donnell Fortune is an example of that.
Cam
He
Smith.
saved his best for last, but you know that's exciting to me that those caliber guys and I think even if it's not next year, Currents and Daniels, you're going to hear a lot about them at South Carolina through the years, provided they stay. You never know with the portal,
So,
but
so JC, man, listen, this is something that I think a lot of people would like to hear from you. Let's just say the Gamecocks have, let's say they got $10 million for the portal, after player retention, all of that, what they've done there. Let's say they got 10 million. And that's just a round number. I'm not saying that's the number, JC. If you want to say a number, that's fine. But how would you allocate some of that? The priorities. Where would you say, okay, if you're going to spend money and you're not going to try and, shop at Walmart, maybe you're going to Target, whatever analogy you want to use. But where are the priority spends, you think?
I think on offensive line obviously is now within offensive line. If you can find, because right now, you're back to a situation where unless you keep Surratt at tackle, you're to a situation where that's a thin spot. Yes, you have Thompson. I mentioned Demola. They love him. Surratt going to stay out there. Zion Giles, could he be your backup tackle as a true freshman? He's good. Nolan Hay did play some tackle at Incarnate Word, but your tackles are always going to command more money. So those would be the guys that I would go pay. After that, center, because we've talked about the issues at center. They missed Vershawn Lee about as bad as they missed Nikki Minwore,
Yeah.
like last year. So there's that part of it. Defensive end, anybody can rush the passer. It's just like the NFL. Whoever gets drafted highest position value wise, I'm going there and D tackle. Those guys are all kind of your higher allocated funds. And then after that, I think that one of the things there is in college football now is there's a shortage of good corners. I think everybody who could play receiver is playing receiver except Vakari Swain, which is good for Vakari Swain and Carolina. But I don't know, depending on how they structure corner and that room, who's exactly playing there and who's playing safety and all that. I don't know that they'll necessarily go corner, maybe, but what I do think they'll target is a nickel. Now, you mentioned the price wise, which so here's what I'm looking at. So if it's a nickel, is he going to be as good in coverage as Kilgore? Like, is he a guy that can cover? Because Kilgore's really more of a safety than a corner, but could cover at that spot. Or is he like Cisse, who could slide out who's more of a corner nickel than a safety nickel? And I'm going to go up if the guy can cover. Like,
Yeah,
he's got the coverage
absolutely.
skills. Now, at that position, you have to be really good against the run. You've really got right now, Jaquel Hallman was the backup there as a true freshman last year.
He's
Uh,
he's going to
and
be good.
and then Zabari Sandy, who's been hurt his whole career. And so you really probably need a nickel, a guy that can play that. And that's a great position. It's very key to this whole Clayton White defense. So that's kind of what I'm going to look at. I mean, I do see a need to get some DBs from the portal, but I also think this Torian Gray, the $1 million man now, worth every penny. The guy's coming back. Let's not trash them because he always gets them better. He always does. So, and I know this past year there were some times where the corners just got beat, but guess what?
That happens.
That happens. You're going to get beat. They probably got beat too much, in my opinion, at times. But it's hard for me to sit here and say this was a disaster on defense because all the defense as a whole overperformed. But and they had some great games. The secondary, the Alabama game, the secondary was fantastic. The Clemson game still fresh in everybody's mind, and I'll freely admit Clemson's playmakers got the best of Carolina's secondary that day.
They did.
The guys like Williams and then
Now, I will say, JC, that was another example in my mind of the defense having to play perfect for 60 minutes
yeah.
because the defense played, I thought, pretty daggum good. And they have played good against Clemson the last couple of years. They really have. I know that, you got those years, a couple, maybe 4 or 5 years ago back where it was just a bloodbath every single time.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't the case this year. But JC, I want to play a game with you.
Right.
And you've already seen this. I don't know how closely you looked at it. But I'm just going to tell you what percent of budget NFL teams put on their roster, and we'll do higher or lower for college. And understand, 63 man roster versus now 105 scholarships is going to be a little bit different.
Oh
But
yeah.
quarterback, 10.4% of your budget.
Mm, I'd say for college, slightly higher. And what I'm using would be like the average budget for most Power Four teams. So I'd say a little higher than that.
So
but
I will say with
your
quarterback though,
starter.
starters 9.4%
Yeah, same,
of the salary, and then second 1% on the backup. So
same.
it's okay. So maybe a little, maybe about 11, 12%. We'll say that. Running back 3.1% for the starter, 4.4% for the backup for the total room there. So I mean that's probably
It's probably a little higher in college. I think running backs are a little more valuable to college teams, especially if you get a good one. But some of I think this is either very smart or very unrealistic. The agents have figured this out at the college level, and so you have running backs that want $1 million, and the reason for that is, and I don't mind that this much. I mean, if somebody out there wants to pay $1 million for a running back, great. But you know what? I don't think I would. He would have to be special, like Marcus Lattimore, Adrian Peterson, Leonard Fournette, maybe Nick Chubb. Of the guys in my career I've watched that have gone on to big things, Derrick Henry, who I was wrong about as a recruit, those guys would be worth high six figure. Marcus would have been worth to South Carolina 1 point whatever million you wanted to pay him, because
yeah.
you look, Marcus Lattimore was the difference between 7 and 6 again and winning the SEC East, and he's just a difference maker and a stud and all that. But they're not a lot of Marcus Lattimores out there,
And the
right?
problem is it's just such an it's the position where you're most likely to get injured as well.
Yeah,
So when
so
you're sinking
they're
lots
always
of
banged
money
up.
into it, that's the
Yeah, I would rather spend like collectively and have some good, but you do have to have good players. You can't have a room that's deficient. And I'm not saying Carolina is. I think we don't. I think we can get an idea of what Gustav brings to the table. But he did redshirt. He caught one pass for 16 yards and then fumbled, and then we never saw him again. I think Jawan Howell has a great shot to do some good things. We mentioned Matt Fuller earlier. I think one of the things Matt Fuller can be better at is being a more patient runner. And I
yeah.
thought Faison was the same in this. Jawan Howell in a limited film, right? Like one play against Coastal, he got a little handoff or whatever you want to call it, and he paused and stopped and then waited for the hole to open and shot through it as a 9 yard gain. And natural things like that he does, that you mentioned, who can, with their own talent, hole or not,
Yeah.
it's patience. And I think Fuller could be more patient. Um, but I'm just not on the 3.1%. That sounds about right at what I would do. But in college, I think it's going to be a little higher than that, especially this offseason as teams kind of, get desperate for running backs. But I mean, again, look at Indiana. I mean, Indiana's recruits at running back versus Alabama's recruit. I mean, who had the better running backs in that game? Obviously, Indiana. Obviously, Alabama
Yeah.
hadn't been able to run the ball all year. Those guys weren't all. I mean, you can find that's another position too, Matt. You can find diamonds in the rough at running back better than almost anything else in the portal. And if you think about it, there's been two D2 guys that have come to the SEC and done relatively well. Cody Schrader at Missouri led the league in rushing, right? Mario Anderson comes from Newberry. He had almost as many yards as Rocket Sanders did. 850. Rocket missed a game or two, and Mario obviously I don't know why they didn't believe he was the top back on the team the first week, but that's okay. And those guys have come from D2, so running back is weird like that. And so I look at like who they're bringing in from TCU. Uh, so that's
Redshirt freshman kid who
yeah,
averaged
yeah.
4.6 yards a
Nate
carry,
Palmer,
limited action, five
yeah,
running backs in the
behind
backfield.
other backs, and Nate Palmer. So this is the type of guy, though. Yeah, he goes in, it's third year in college. Who knows? He may be really good. That's one where if you're out there wondering, why don't they go get a Hollywood Smothers, who appears Alabama bound at this point, from NC State? Well, Hollywood is a proven guy. He's got a great name. He's going to demand some kazash, and you have other needs, and everybody's only got so much money. I mean, it's probably a bigger need at Bama than it is at Carolina. As crazy as that sounds to say, but
What's the offense predicated on, right? I mean,
yeah, this is the type of guy, Nate Palmer, who could end up being pretty good, and Texas kid. So I don't know, so That my take would be that there's going to be some schools where that number is going to be higher. So
Well, I
next
mean, I'll
was
put it this way: in the men's salary in the NFL is like $300,000, $400,000. That should be plenty to go get a running back. And if you have a room, it's $1 million room at running
yeah,
back. I'm okay with that.
yeah, yeah,
Put it
yeah.
that way. So wide receiver, 9.1% of the budget goes to starters, 11.4% for the room. And you got to remember, I mean, wide receiver, you're having three or four on the field at a time in the NFL now. It's very few times where you're having, two wide receiver formations. I think that's probably about right. I mean, you're kind of valuing the quarterbacks and the wide receivers at the similar value. And in college, I don't think you can't have three alphas in the room, right? LSU proved that. I mean, you had Justin Jefferson, you had Jamar Chase, you had the other kid too, that was in that room, and they all had to wait their turn to become that elite guy that got drafted in the first round. I think that you need to go spend on a stud, and maybe they did with Nick Harbor, and I'm fine with that. If that's the case, I'm absolutely okay with it. But then you just got to find what fits the system. And you can, I firmly believe you could find that, JC. Like might laugh at me. I'm not gonna go down to Newberry, but I am gonna go to like a Coastal Carolina because Jared Brown had a role at South Carolina, and if injuries hadn't stopped him, I think he could have been a lot better. So you don't have to go find $3 million guys, which I think a lot of people want to see, JC. They want to see three KC Concepcions when he was 1.1, $1.2 million. And to me, JC, like I've said this, KC Concepcion wouldn't have changed anything for this offense through 10 games. So that's just wasted money. So go find the guys to fit the system. And I don't know, I'd say 9% is fine for a wide receiver budget.
Yeah, well, and this is another position too, in really in the NFL as well. There's a line of demarcation. Like there are some guys that I think, like Cam Coleman from Auburn, he's going to get paid. He's probably worth it. If you put him in the right system that doesn't have quarterback issues like that at Auburn, he's going to light it up. But there, Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, very few guys like that though, man. And even this year, Smith's production was down because they didn't have the same situation at quarterback, and well, we saw Ohio State flawed. But we're in the South. It's South Carolina, Florida. I kind of like to stay away from Georgia wide receivers for whatever reason. State of Georgia, not University of Georgia, but I like South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, even guys sometimes from the Northeast that are really good. You can find receivers at this school, but I'll say this too about Harbor and the money. A lot of people want to, because he was a 5-star, they want to clump him in with Sellers and Stewart. This stuff's not based on your star rating out of high school. It's based on
Yeah.
your production so far. So yeah, I mean he got some money to come back because he would have probably been drafted somewhere
Yeah.
in the NFL. But let's not get it twisted that he's at Dylan Stewart and Lenore Sellers level. That they just went all in on Nick as their top guy. And Nick is going to be a top guy. I think Nick's going to have. I mean, he had 30 catches this year in this system. If he can get 50 plus, that's a win, and keep going downfield like he is. And I still hope to see what he did at A&M, with the catch and run. I love that. I've been waiting for him to do that 3 years, and he did. Where he just runs off and leaves the team. But there's other guys, the young guys too. Donovan Murph, Jaden Sellers did enough last year to be really good. I hate they lost Vandrevius Jacobs, but I do think Vandrevius is replaceable,
Yeah.
either by someone on campus that we aren't talking about, or somebody else. So as far as the 9.1%, 11.4 of the total deal, I also think this, dude. It's so your starters are 9.1% of it, and then you get less money for the others. Okay. I think in college that's a little more evenly distributed,
I think so too. I think it has to be. Well,
yes. So
well, JC, here's my question for you. So we know KC Concepcion was a $1 million man, right? But that's pretty well documented, not from the Big Spur or anything like that, or Gamecock, but it's been shared and
yeah,
speculated enough. All right, so last year, if KC's a $1 million man, how much is Ryan Williams from Alabama if he got in the portal last year after his breakout freshman year?
1 million plus. But
Yeah,
was
and
he
so you
worth
get
it?
49 receptions, 689 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So that's where I tell people you have to be a little bit measured in what you're spending on players, because I mean South Carolina, JC. If I told the average South Carolina fan, yeah, the Gamecocks have NIL now. Yeah, they're spending money. Yeah, they got Ryan Williams from Alabama, $2 million. Best investment South Carolina made in the offseason. Going to transcend the offense. Going to make Lenore Sellers a Heisman, 1 and 2 in the Heisman ballot. But you wouldn't have signed up for that if you know what the result was.
And he's a slot guy too. I mean, and
Yeah.
they had plenty of slot guys. I mean, the problems with the offense weren't that they were missing a good receiver, capable receivers. I mean, that just wasn't. Well, there were a big. There's a big list of reasons why the offense wasn't good, and the wide receivers not on there. But like this Jaden Gibson guy, that's the type of guy who's apparently visiting from Oklahoma, who they almost had out of high school. Just kind of been injured. And maybe it works out with him, maybe it doesn't. I mean, just because you visit doesn't mean you'll get him. I also think this. Even if Casey Concepcion didn't want $1 million, there was nothing that said, "Oh, he's coming to South Carolina if it weren't for money." That was a very different type of recruitment.
Yeah.
So I would caution for people like that just want to say, "Oh well, we just don't want to spend the money." And if we had Casey Concepcion, we would have been
Well,
eight
I'll
and
also
four.
remind folks that Brian Rowe and Casey Concepcion have the same agent.
Yeah,
So when you wonder why Brian Rowe might have left, maybe there's some agent things going on there.
Uh, you know, Brian. Brian was what I was told is Brian was pretty frustrated at the end of
Yeah.
the year, but a
And
lot of
he's a
that
great kid. I've talked to the kid. He's a
was
great young man. Yeah, he got suspended a game, but fresh starts can be
made
good
some
for everybody.
mistakes. Yeah, and that happens. Carolina's had very few of situations
In
like
my
that.
younger years, JC, I wish I had given myself more opportunity for fresh starts. Sometimes I just got so down in the dumps and mad at myself or whatever. Like, hey, man, fresh start's good. Hell, JC, you know all about that right now.
Yeah,
Fresh
dude.
starts,
Exactly. I love that. But
but hey, man, you look at tight end. Tight end's kind of like running back. They're not spending a lot there. 4.3%, 6.2. But JC, the thing I wanted to harp on really, we'll kind of tie this up, and we'll be happy to, talk to you guys about this. Send us a DM if you want to see these numbers. But offensive line is 19.6% of your salary. Defensive line 23.2%, and DB is 15.9%. So if you wonder where you need to be spending your money and saying, let's go get spend up or blue chip, it's not at running back, it's not at wide receiver. The quarterback market takes care of itself. I mean, you're going to spend what you're going to spend on a quarterback, but O line, D line, and DB, that's where you got to be really, really aggressive.
I agree with you there, and I think they're well on their way. But yeah, the lines of scrimmage, defensive back too. It's such a premium, and Carolina. The reason that they're having to hit the portal for D tackles, it seems every year, is you had a lull there. You had an 0 for 4 in the 2022 class, which
And
was
Georgia got
tough.
them all.
No, that was 2022. They signed 4, and
Oh,
all of
okay.
them
Yeah.
busted. And then in 2023-24, when they did the Jimmy Lindsey left for LSU, and then Travian comes in midstream, everybody went to Georgia. It seemed that they targeted. You didn't sign anybody. You lost on the kid that from South Florence, Adams, that went to Clemson. When you have an in-state D tackle right there, and he's South Florence, I mean, that's tough to lose that guy, right? And he just went. He just liked Clemson better and went to Clemson. That's going to happen, but you hate that it happened at that particular spot.
It didn't even come to Carolina's camps either
Yeah,
in the
just
summer.
just
He wouldn't
kind of.
go.
And then you haven't had the guys from around the state like a TJ Sanders that's good enough to bring in and sign that's kind of under the radar. There's been a little lull in the state that way. So they had to get into North Carolina this year in high school. And thankfully, Travian, everybody said, Travian struggles recruiting. No, I don't think so. It just takes time because so many of these kids in high school have been being recruited for 3 years. So they got a 3 year head start. So when you're a new coach, you're behind the 8 ball. But getting Aiden Harris, who everybody wanted, and getting Noah Clark, who's just a big monster, that's going to help. And then, Caleb Williams needs to stay healthy
Yeah.
because right when he was about to be healthy enough to play again, because they like him,
He's a forgotten man.
big kid from Virginia, he broke his leg. It's like, oh gosh, Christian Ingram is going to be good too. So, you kind of look at it, you're still going to need help in the portal for a little bit, but absolutely you have to spin there and also edge out, having And one of the other problems, and again, it's not this isn't on the defense. One of the things last year that I think that really did hurt them at edge is Jalen Brown got hurt and had some health issues and could not play. Well, there was their guy, got played as a freshman at Missouri. He's 265 pounds. I was told when they first got him and started spring practice before he got hurt, like this guy's going to be really good, right? Of course,
Hmm.
it's based on practice. So you,
And Missouri did not want to lose him either
no, they
at
didn't.
all.
No, they didn't. He would have been in the rotation. And then, it's kind of funny. I got that feedback from the same contact. It's crazy because like this guy, I feel bad for him because he'll say some good things about a player to me, and then the next thing you know, it seems like he's hurt. George Wilson, really good in the scrimmages and stuff, blows out his knee, and he's going to try to come back. So that hurt the depth in that room a little bit. I'm not saying again that would have made a difference because again that's down the list, but you have to have dudes at end in this league and at tackle. But yeah, that's the defensive line spending. If you notice, I believe that's your highest percentage.
Oh yeah, it's 23% of the salary.
Yeah, and that's it. And there's reasons for this. It's because a lot of football evaluation, and we used to do this at 24/7 Sports and Rivals when I was doing it nationally, ESPN too. You when you're ranking, like you're doing a national top 100, you're doing guys from different states that compete at different levels within those states. Then you have guys that are at different positions. So how do you figure all this out position wise? It's not the best players. It's the long term. You have to project. And so how do you determine, like the top offensive guard in the country, Matt, may be a better football player, like may grade out higher than the top quarterback in the country, who may be really good, but he's the top quarterback. So when you're doing an apples to oranges rankings comparison, you're always going to gravitate toward the higher position value.
Yeah.
Now there are exceptions. In the 13 class, it was 13 class, 14 class, we had what five-star running backs. That hasn't happened since. But they were Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, who I actually Joe Mixon had one offer when I put him in our top 100. And I'll
Who was
never
his offer?
Sacramento, San Jose State.
Wow.
He's from California, so I just actually watched his films. Like this guy's pretty good. Blew up 49 offers, whatever. Nick Chubb, Sony Michelle, and a guy named Royce Freeman who played at
Boise.
Oregon.
Oh yeah, he was
Yeah,
at Oregon.
Royce had great film. He was from a little town near Mexicali, in central Southern California, like not playing against good competition. But we had him out at the opening in Portland and he ran 4.4. And so it was like, okay, this guy, because running backs, you do have to look at their speed. Like because they'll look faster than everybody else on the field. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. But, Nick Chubb was a no brainer. Sonny Michelle was a no brainer. Joe Mixon was and Leonard Fournette was a no brainer. But those are the exceptions, not the rules, because talent does ebb and flow. So these percentages are right, kind of in line with what colleges are doing, but I think some spots in the college game you may go a little higher for a stud receiver that would bump that percentage up. I think the running back percentage is going to be higher this year for some reason, uh, probably because they're smart, trying to get as much money as they can because the NFL. And then quarterback speaks for itself, and offensive line too. Urban Meyer talked about this last year when Ohio State was struggling on the offensive list. Everybody needs offensive linemen. I mean, the athletic, and I didn't agree with the premise of this article, but it was they called it a crisis. I'm like, because Ohio State isn't 15 deep with studs on the offensive line, it's a crisis. These guys get in the portal, and they share the wealth. I mean, look, man, we're living in a world where Oregon, Ole Miss, Indiana, and Miami are in the Final Four. And if this were the 1970s, and you tell everybody that would be like those are four of the worst teams in college football. So Miami guys obviously got good in the 80s. And then Oregon, it was the 2000s. Ole Miss they hadn't done much. If you look at their
I'm pulling
history,
for Ole Miss big time, not because they're SEC, just with everything they've gone through. I'm pulling for
yeah,
them,
dude,
man.
it's like and they just won. I feel bad for Georgia in such a way. I thought Georgia had a really great year, really overperformed. But anyway, so we're living in that world, and then everybody's writing about how it's a crisis that Ohio State's not 15 deep. But
Well,
that position is valuable, dude, because and it's terrible because I almost think teams are wasting money because nobody's really that good on the offensive line. People watch Indiana and think they are, and those guys execute, but it's more execution in
yeah.
their offense than anything.
Well, that's what I
So,
was saying earlier.
yeah,
It's South Carolina's masked offensive line issues in the past. Every program does it. You just got to have a cohesive unit. And I mean, I think, JC, that kind of goes into, one of the last few topics I had for us is one of the big things the Gamecocks need to do this offseason is understand this is a win now, urgent DEFCON 1 type situation. Like all these coaches you love ain't going to be here next year if y'all go 6-6 or 4-8. You have to teach this team how to win again. And I don't know where that went last year, but I think it was just a confluence of things. Defense not really trusting the offense to get enough points, offense second guessing themselves. But even in the games you had a chance to win, Missouri, Alabama, I would even say Oklahoma to an extent, LSU, those you win those games when you know how to win. So JC, is it even possible to teach a team to win in the offseason without doing it?
to teach the when in my experience when I've seen it, it's usually a game. I hate to say this, like the Virginia Tech game where you didn't really play particularly well outside of early, but you got enough and you put them away and then you build on that. And Carolina never
Yeah.
did that. It never happened. I mean, the SC State game, whatever happened in that game was very disappointing. And then you got the next week where Vandy comes in and Lenoris goes down. I don't know if Lenore stays in the game that it's a blowout, but you get blown out at home by Vandy. I mean, and then you play a Missouri team that's basically you've not Clayton White's in your notes. You say Clayton White's really good 90 to 95% of the time. Yes, but when he played Eli Drinkwitz's Missouri Tigers, the defense looks like they still haven't figured that out how to stop
Yeah.
them consistently on the ground. And so that probably wasn't going to work out. Then you come home and you beat Kentucky, and that there were some things about that game. Again, you had to rely on non-offensive touchdowns, and then LSU and the games like LSU, like Alabama, like A&M, just didn't have the offense in the second half to either A, put them away, or B, rally. And when you don't have the offense to do that, your defense gets tired. I mean, and I'll never forget. And this was Mike Shula's last game, and he's a good guy. And I hate what happened to him. But I think as a play caller, he just kind of, I think he still knows the game. I just don't think as a play caller and offensive coordinator, I think he's had better days. Um, so in that game, Carolina runs 6 minutes off the clock. I think it was a 12 or 13 play drive, mostly running, and then they got sacked 4 straight times. And they're down 9. Okay. And the very next play, Kewan Lacey right up the middle. I've seen that over and over again. And you're like, the defense let it down. Then the defense is tired, dude. And it's those kids, they know the offense just ran a bunch of time off. It's like a bridge to nowhere. It's a drive to nowhere. And that
Yeah.
happened time and time again. And then, there were things that normally happen. And are usually the difference between winning and losing, just bad timing on mistakes by Sellers. You can say Harbor should have just batted the ball down on the pick six against Clemson or to the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but the fumble against Bama, you don't fumble it there. I think it would have been 3rd and 2.
Yep.
And if you pick it up, you're at least tied and going to overtime. And I'd have taken Alabama's kickers kind of iffy all year. So I don't know, man. That fumbles, those 2 games hurt, and then of course the meltdown against A&M and yet another momentum play. That's an important thing too. How do you solve that? Well, you bring in some new players, you bring in some new coaches and new voices. You talk and emphasize leadership all off season. You talk about how it's going to be different now that you've got a new plan on offense, and then you go out and put some dang points on the board
Yeah.
against Kent and Towson and score like you're capable of scoring. By the time Mississippi State comes in, you got that confidence to win. The thing that will do it the most, though, Matt, is simply winning games. You know, if any of these games that were fourth quarter games have gone Carolina's way, yeah, and I'm not talking about beating a Kentucky team that was really struggling. You know, I'm talking like if they'd have rallied to win at LSU,
Yeah.
or let's say they'd have given Oklahoma a game in the second half,
What
and they'd
happened
have,
to Oklahoma last year?
yeah, beaten
After Bama, you
Bama.
rally.
Yeah, you go and you get going. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It was a that's concerning, but the bright spot is Beamer's teams prior to this past year have always run done, you know, they had a great record when leading going in the fourth quarter and halftime things like that.
Well,
So
I sit there, JC, and I think that the only things that I can point to outside of what you said that's positive is the guys that are the studs came back, and by and large. And yeah, you can hate Shane's press conferences all you want. You can say he gives lip service, blah 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 blah. But I'm sorry, but almost everything he said has come true. I mean, these kids have heart. These kids are hurt. These kids are ready to get back here. They're ready to pick up, leave 2025 behind and go to 26. They're all chomping at the bit to get back here. And by golly, Lenore Sellers shoots a video. Dylan Stewart does Dylan Stewart, puts something up on social media. Nick Harbor shoots a video. All of a sudden, you've had maybe three guys you care about that have hit the transfer portal. The offensive line, which everybody hated all year, well, all those guys are gone. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise. And maybe sometimes people tell you the truth. Maybe Shane Beamer was telling you the truth. And that might be my motto for 2026. If they do everything Shane says, maybe just trust the guy that's the head coach sometimes, even though he hasn't hired great OCs.
oh yeah, but I mean
That's it, though. That's it. It's OCs.
it has been a concern, my friend. But yeah, and I'll just point this out as far as guys I'm looking forward to seeing next year. And then we'll wrap it up because it's been a great conversation. Um, the we know getting Sellers and Harbor and Stewart back, that's going to draw the headlines. But Vakari Swain and Justin Okoronkwo coming back, to me, is huge. It was never really in doubt that Troy Pikes would be back, but I think he and Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, just like last year with Goodwine and Barrett, it gives you a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
He gives you his two guys. They're older, you know, they've been there before. Brownlow Dindy kind of had some nagging injuries all year, but when he played his best football ever, and he's only going to get better. He's a freak. You know, getting Fred Johnson back, Judge Collier back is big. And then on offense, Josiah Thompson still back. People can say what they want about him. He got better as soon as Sean Elliott took over.
And what is the other thing that everything that John Strickland says that you've said, anyone that's done this, covered this, what is offensive line? It's a developmental position. And when are
Yes.
you usually your best? Your fourth or fifth year in the program if you make it that far. Well,
Yeah.
guys, Josiah Thompson's been here 2 years, got thrown into the fire as a freshman. Let's just think he might have some good football ahead of him. He might
A
get better.
little bit of sophomore slump. You know, he's got Randy Clements and Jason Smith, a first round draft pick that played that's sitting there coaching him. So,
Yeah.
and then I'm not throwing shade at Lonnie Teasley or anybody like that. I'm just saying that, you know, sometimes I thought the new voice helped him.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that he had a great game against Clemson. The whole offensive line did not. But, you know, him coming back, I think, is big. You know,
Should.
I think that when you look at Donovan Murph, Jaden Sellers, and then Matt Fuller, as far as your young nucleus goes, you know, Ohio State, you know, reached out and inquired about Fuller getting in the portal. So, you know, they're pretty good at running back recruiting and stuff. So they see something on film with him
Hmm.
that they like. I hope whoever made that decision up there wasn't just watching the LSU run. Oh, this guy's really good. But you know, evaluating running backs is very nuanced. It was. I'll be honest. It was not my best position to do. I bragged about the 5-star year, but that was about a. I had some running backs that were just dog breakfast that I ranked high, and then I had some really good ones that I didn't rank too high, I mean, including Marcus Lattimore, who was number 20 in the country for us at 24/7 that probably should have been at the
Yeah,
top.
back in the day, I got mad at you about that, JC.
Why are you getting mad at me, man? Don't get mad because you hurt my feelings.
Marcus Lattimore is the number one player in the country because he's from South Carolina. He's committed to the Gamecocks, and I
Dude,
love him. Okay,
I,
JC,
I had
the
every
best.
reason. Dude, he's also from Burns High School. And not only that, he's one of my favorite people ever. I love Marcus Lattimore. I don't know why I did it looking back. Maybe I bought some Kool-Aid or something about the top end speed. My dog's mad at me about not ranking Marcus high. I still hate myself for that. But anyway, it is a very nuanced evaluation because you can look at Derrick Henry's another one I was wrong about.
Well, what
Uh,
position was he going to play?
he was an
All of them.
athlete. Well, Derrick, see, here's the thing. I didn't listen to my guys at Alabama. I thought I knew it all. Now, he was 12th in the country,
Yeah.
but as an athlete, because I didn't think he was going to be running back. So I'm at the Army game. We're in the press box. Shout out to my boy Barto, who I hung out with this past on New Year's. He was over there doing national radio, and I believe Mike Davis, who came to Carolina, was also in that game and had a good game. But I saw Derrick Henry take a toss sweep and flashed in a blink of an eye, turned his shoulder square to the goal line and took off. And I was like, that guy, he'll be a running back. And he is. I call him the freak of all freaks because that guy, he'd come to every camp. It's from Yulee, Florida, uh, small school down in Florida. He come to every camp. He would always test, never shied away from the clock, always would run 4.5, always be exactly 6'4", 240, and would always jump 42 inches in the high jump and always had a 3.8 short shuttle. And I was too stupid to sit there and think, oh, it's too tall to play running.
He won me my fantasy championship. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that
dude.
this past
And
weekend.
he's still going, dude. He's still going in the NFL. And that's another really great kid. So I don't know what it is. Maybe these good people that play running back, I had a bias
Well, the
for them.
reason I think Derrick Henry's never got hurt is like he he puts like 40-pound sleds on and runs uphill. Like if his tendons haven't snapped at this point, they're just not
Dude,
going
he is
to.
I love that guy. I love that guy. But yeah, so running back's very nuanced though. So sometimes we'll just look at production or whatever, and it is what it is. Anyway, well, man, this has been a lot of fun. I want to
Heck yeah.
remind everybody to check out the Late Night Gamecock Show, which will now move to Sunday night now that we're in the new year,
Yep.
7 p.m. Alex Jones, the pride of Hampton County, and Matt, the Late Night Gamecock himself. We'll be back with coffee inside the Gamecocks, the morning show inside the Gamecocks, the show on Monday, and have another special with Wild Bill Gunner coming up tomorrow. We're gonna talk a little bit different. Conversation about some things, but
Well, hopefully the Gamecocks can win against Vandy, knock
yeah,
off a top 10 opponent.
yeah, we'll
And
see what happens. I don't know that I have a lot of faith, but shout out to my boy Cox by 90 Jeff and Cocky Hospitality and all that crowd that hang out on X, and there Jeff's always a believer and fired up. So hopefully they do. It would be a nice. Sometimes you start SEC play and you hit the road and you're all feeling good about yourself and you don't shoot well and the home team does and you get your ass beat. So that could be
well,
Vandy
Leachy's trying
today.
to buy tickets for fans.
Yeah, dude. There you go. Use that NIL money for good use. But we'll be back to talk about everything this week. Want to thank everybody for reaching out after the departure from the Big Spur. Very nice emails, texts, tweets. I'll be back, folks. Don't worry about me. We'll see. Got to figure out exactly what that is, but don't think you've heard the last from me. And certainly, if you are a consumer of this on podcast form, follow at Gamecock Show, and we'll have the new link to get it on Apple and Spotify and stuff. Had to leave that behind, but everything else is coming, obviously, with me. Matt, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Happy New Year, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow night. See ya.